anyone who feels weak or has that self-doubt, it comes from not a lack of belief, it comes from a lack of ability. And abilities can be trained and learned. And I always say this to people, if something makes you nervous, if something makes you unconfident, if something makes you scared, you can't just believe in yourself. And I think a lot of people talk about self-belief, and really it's about self-respect. And self-respect comes from doing hard things. And so if you're dealing with something that you don't feel you're good at, go and try and get decent at it. Go and take a course, get a coach, get a mentor, go out there and read a book about it, listen to this podcast, right? Like when you're searching for the answer, all of a sudden your skill starts to develop, and now the problem starts to feel easier to solve. And so as a dependent, especially if you're single, start solving problems yourself. And guess what? You're gonna feel so much self-respect, and now your self-doubt goes away at the root.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I make these videos because I need it. I need it for me because I don't wake up every day and say, yes, let's go conquer the world. No, I wake up and I need that external motivation to match my internal motivation. When I see somebody who's doing amazing things, it makes me just want to play a bigger game. And so I hope that today's video makes you want to play a bigger game too, because your message matters, and let's get it out to the world. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Jay Shetty, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Rule number 2 is study people's lives.
You have to really study people's lives. And I think this is something I've always done. And as a reader, you do. And even as an interviewer, you do. When you study someone's life, you actually get to learn from it rather than get carried away with how you feel in the moment. So what I mean by that is, if you study the arc of any successful person in Hollywood, you'll see a sign of success, maybe a rebellion,
right?
Then you'll see depression, you'll see mental health, you'll see all of this, and you could ignore it and think, oh, that will never happen to me,
right?
And you think you're the exception.
I would be happy with all of that.
I would be happy with all of that. And I think that that's the mindset that sets us up for failure, where we go, oh no, I'm special.
Yeah.
Like I'm better. And it's like, well, you're not, you're human. All of us are human. And so I think when you study someone else's life, you actually develop empathy for them and compassion for yourself.
Yeah.
And you think, wait a minute, let me be aware of the natural pitfalls.
Yeah.
It's kind of like saying if one of your friends has been to a country and they had a rough experience, you got to learn from that experience. You don't just go, oh no, that's not going to happen to me.
I'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll be fine.
Rule number 3 is practice self-discipline.
Do you wake up happy or sad?
I wake up neither. I wake up feeling purposeful and disciplined. So there's some days where I wake up and I'm tired and I'd rather stay in bed, but my discipline gets me out because I have commitments that I believe are important and that are going to get me to where I want to be and who I want to be, and it's worth getting up for those. So then sometimes it's a disciplined day, and sometimes it's a purposeful day. I wake up and I feel so connected to my purpose, kind of like today. I knew I was coming to see you today, and I was excited about being with you today and with your incredible team. And I respect what you do so much. So today was a purposeful day. I didn't have to come here out of discipline. I came here out of purpose that I'm going to get a chance to like be myself and share myself with someone, and someone that I've heard so many amazing things about through mutual friends that we both respect. And if I can be that, then that will be amazing. And so purpose and discipline are what I try and wake up with, as opposed to happiness and sadness, because I can't really be happy every day, because sometimes I just got to get through the day and get it done. And I don't experience so much sadness because the emotional mastery training really works, and you don't want to spend so much time in that space either.
Rule number 4 is embrace solitude.
Paul Tillich, who talked about how there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. And he talks about how, or being alone is like the strength of being alone, but loneliness is the weakness of being alone. And it's really interesting that in the English dictionary, we have 2 words for being alone. One's alone and one's solitude, but we never use the word solitude. So we always say, oh, I'm going to be alone tonight, right? We say, oh no, I'm just going to stay in and be alone tonight. Or if you were at school and lots of people didn't come to your party, you'd always be considered less popular.
A loner.
A loner, exactly. If you're the person at the lunch table who's sitting alone, you're the loner. If you turn up to a wedding and you don't have a +1, it's like, oh, poor you. Like, when are you going to get married? Like, When's your turn?
Yes,
right? Like,
100%.
That's the and of course, so that's the language. We've made being alone an enemy. We've made being lonely the enemy. And we all know this. This is common wisdom today, that we can all feel surrounded by so many people and still feel disconnected. That's what we all experience pretty much every single day. So being alone being alone is not defined by your physical proximity to people. Being alone is defined by how well you understand yourself and how well others understand you. If you don't feel understood by your friends, you will feel alone. If you don't feel you understand yourself, you will feel lonely. So solitude is a space you create to take the time to get to know yourself.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5 is stay grounded.
I'm curious what sort of like monk philosophies or just things you use to keep yourself grounded.
The first thing I have to say is that it's a daily, constant practice. It's not something that you can just say, oh, I already mastered it in my monk life and now I don't need to worry. It's a daily practice to remain grounded. My favorite tips for remaining grounded for myself are, I think it's so important to not forget who you are and where you came from. Mm-hmm. My best friends are still my best friends from back in London. I was just back there, and I was just telling you a few seconds ago, I was back in London for Christmas and New Year's, and I was hanging out with my friends all the time, friends that I've known for like 20 years, and all they do is rip apart my red carpet looks, my change in hair, like whatever it is. Like they'll just, but it's the best, right? Because it's like, these are the people I grew up with. They know me the best. They care about me. They love me deeply. And when you let them lay into you in that British banter way, it keeps a sense of groundedness and reality to where you came from.
Rule number 6 is learn how to fight.
John and Julie Gottman, who have been married for God knows how many years, but they have an amazing study called the Gottman Institute, which looks at all of this amazing research. And they found that the number one thing that keeps couples together is not date nights, it's not walks on the beach, it's not dinners, it's not movie nights, it's not holidays, it's learning how to fight. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, like learning how to fight is a skill. It's an art form. And kind of like what you just said about taking things personally. So when me and my wife first started dating and when we got married and when we'd first argue, I want to talk about it now and figure it out right now. That's the kind of fighter I am, right?
And men could be very logical, like, well, A plus B equals C. So what are we doing?
And I'm very much like that.
Yeah.
And I call that in the book venting. It's like, I want to figure it out now and I want to do it right now. My wife is what I call a hider. She wants to go into a room. She wants to like not talk to me. She wants to think about it. She wants to reflect on it. She wants to figure it out. At the beginning of our relationship, I took that personally. I was like, oh wait, you don't care as much as I do. Because I'm standing right here and you're walking
Like, I want to fix it. You're giving up.
Exactly. And then only to realize that that's just how she dealt with it. Because when she came back, sometimes 2 days later, it was a bit of a long
10 years later.
I'm like waiting outside. But like 2 days later when she came back, it's like, I'm like, oh, she was actually in a place to process it. And so what we found is you need 2 days. I need 1 hour. Like now, we're going to meet in 12 hours a day. Like we're going to meet in the middle and figure it out. And then the third fight style I explain is exploding, where it's like, I want to talk about my emotions right now. So you're not trying to fix it. You're not trying to solve it, but you need to be heard. Yes. Neither of these is good or bad. It's recognizing that we're all different and we all deal with stress and conflict differently.
Rule number 7 is find real love.
I'd love to talk a little bit about your upbringing, the Bollywood experience, and sort of where we are today as far as our understanding of love.
Yeah. So for anyone who has never watched a Bollywood movie, Bollywood is like Hollywood on romantic steroids, right? So if you take a rom-com and then you add music, dancing,
more color,
over dramatic stories of love and sacrifice and surrender, you get Bollywood. And I grew up on Bollywood and Hollywood movies. And to me, I loved rom-coms growing up. Like I loved rom-coms. And I think that's a big impact of my mom, like watching rom-coms at home and, you know, us getting together and watching them and me wanting that kind of fairy tale love. And I can definitely admit openly that I wanted a fairy tale kind of love. I wanted a rom-com kind of love because you start to realize that that's the only images of love that you see. And then I started to think about other images of love I saw. My family didn't have great relationships, so there were no good images of love there that I could say, I want that. If anything, I was saying, I don't want to repeat that. And then if I looked at my friends' parents or I looked at extended family, I didn't see any great images of relationships there either. So the only happy relationships I saw were in movies. So then that became my image of that's a good love story. And I think I pursued that and chased that a lot, only to feel really disheartened every time because you couldn't recreate a movie in real life. It just wouldn't work. And so when I talk about my upbringing, I found a lot of habits that I didn't want to repeat in my own life. I saw a lot of things that I would never want to replicate. And I started almost making a mental note saying, I don't want to argue like that. I won't behave like that. I won't speak like that. Anything that I saw that was hurtful or damaging, I almost made a mental note saying, I don't want to be a part of that in my life. I don't want that to be my behavior. And then everything I saw in the movies, unfortunately, I wrote a list going, I want that. Yes, I want that. I want that. So I was getting 50% right and then I was getting 50% wrong. And, you know, you have to let life humble you. I think that's what's so beautiful about this whole journey is that life shows you what reality is. And I think a lot of us are thinking, how do I get my relationship right? Or what did I get wrong? Or how do I find the right person? Or I just met the wrong person. And I don't think it's about right and wrong. It's about reality. And reality is right in the middle of right and wrong. And so if you just go, what is the reality of what I'm experiencing? What is the reality of what's possible? Reality is a much healthier metric than right or wrong.
Rule number 8 is heal your trauma.
I have spent the last couple of decades of my life simply trying to heal, monitor, and navigate any trauma I've had. And you're absolutely right that you don't become fully free of it. It's not like it's all gone and now life's great. And, you know, I still catch myself making mistakes with my own wife all the time. I had a conversation with her the other day and I was just messaging her afterwards going, I'm sorry, that conversation was all my fault. Like literally just like 2 days ago. And it was, I realized that I was, and it wasn't about something, it wasn't between me and her. We weren't arguing about something. It was almost like there was something that had happened in our family and we were both taking different sides. And I realized the side I took was only because of my own ego. It wasn't because of, I actually believed it. I just wanted to be right about it. And I wanted to be seen and heard and felt and understood in a certain way. And I went about it completely the wrong way. And I remembered how nicely the conversation had started. Like she'd called me up and, you know, we've got crazy time difference right now because she lives in LA, as in we live in LA, but I'm in Dubai right now. And so in that short window we had, like I wasted the call. And so the trauma doesn't go away completely, but you get better at noticing it. You get better at observing it. You get better at limiting it and how often it happens. And you get better at communicating it to your partner. And I'll often say to Radhi that, hey, you know, that was just me projecting this thing. I just want you to be aware of that. It wasn't about you. And as long as you understand that, I just want you to get that. And at least it helps you have that conversation. Whereas without you being aware of it, you think you're right, right? You still think that you got it right.
Rule number 9 is practice meditation.
I have taken different practices from different traditions that I find fascinating. Overall, I follow a text called the Vedas, which is a universal text which doesn't have a religion or particular spiritual path aligned to it. It's just speaking universally about practices like meditation and wisdom and knowledge. And so for me, I practice 3 different forms of meditation: breathwork, visualization, and mantra, which is the repetition of sacred sound. A lot of what I practice is inspired out of India because that was the tradition I lived in as a monk. And so to me, but I honestly, having said that, I've loved pretty much every spiritual text I've picked up. I tell and read stories from so many different traditions. I consider myself a practitioner, like a citizen of the world when it comes to culture and spirituality, because I feel like I can genuinely learn from any path and any tradition.
And number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is be in service to others.
I am raw energy, here to serve, support, and try to hopefully improve people's lives and people's life experience by giving them access to wisdom and knowledge that they wouldn't otherwise have come across. So I see myself as consciousness and energy when it comes to the essence of who I am. And then I see that purpose of that consciousness and energy to simply want to serve, support, and improve the lives of others. And that's what I'm designed to do. That's what I'm built to do. That's what I was created for. And so I've often said before that we're educated for greed, but we're wired for generosity. And I believe that I'm just trying to tap into that part of me that is wired for service. And
why? Like, why do you feel that you should do it? Like, I know it's your purpose, but we all as human beings want to feel validated or significant on this earth, and certain things make us feel valuable. Why does what you just said make Jay feel valuable?
Yeah, such a great question. There's a beautiful statement by Muhammad Ali where he said that service to others is the rent we pay for our room here on earth. And I love that so much, because I think that if you look at everything in the universe is always serving. I'll give you an example. If you look at the sun, it's constantly giving sunlight. There are so many things on this planet that depend on the sunlight to be alive. If you look at the water, it's always fueling people, it's nourishing people, it's hydrating people. The water is always serving. If you look at a tree is growing every single day so that it can provide shade, it can provide fruits, it can provide flowers, all in the service of others. If you look at everything in nature, it's always serving. And we ourselves are nature. We may see ourselves as separate, but the truth is that we're no different. We grow, we evolve, we die. And so when you are nature, the reason why it gives me so much significance is because I realize that in order to be aligned with the universe, I have to serve. So when we talk about being aligned with the universe, when we talk about being aligned with our purpose, when we talk about being aligned with who we are, if nature is at the core and at the essence of who we are, then service is not making us feel significant for any other reason apart from that is our natural inclination. But because we've tried so hard to become the enjoyer, we've tried so hard to become the person who just wants to have pleasure, we've tried so hard to become the person that just wants to exploit as well, that doesn't lead to joy and happiness. Imagine the sun decided to turn off and went, I'm not giving any more light for the day. Or if the water decided to stop and said, you know what, no more water for planet Earth. Or you know what, the trees said, you know what, I'm not giving any fruits. I'm only going to give fruits to my trees. All of a sudden, like so much would break down in an ecosystem. And so I think it gives me significance because I realize that it's how we're made, it's what we're meant for, and it's also what leads to our happiness. So even selfishly, honestly speaking, it's not that service is completely selfless. Service is also selfish and selfless because it is knowing that it is good for myself. It is also going to make me happy. It is also going to make me feel content. Venturing into the unknown actually helps you know yourself better. According to researchers at the University of Southern California, cross-cultural experiences where we interact with people from different backgrounds and walks of life, our own sense of self becomes stronger. Travel also shows us that no matter how different we are, we're also the same. Adam Gillingsley says when we engage with other cultures, we start to recognize that most people treat us in similar ways. That produces an increase in trust, and that increased trust boosts our overall faith in humanity.
What do you think is going to be the lesson you're going to learn at the end of this year if you could be in the future, what do you think your soul is going to tell you that is going to be the lesson and the thing for you to step into or let go of into the next year?
I think the lesson will be to, and everyone needs to do this, and it comes back to your point of season, is to live in the season that you have reached. And what I mean by that is that there was a different energy that it took to get here, and it will be a different energy to move forward. And I think it's really interesting because I think we often stay in the same energy state multiple years of our life because we got used to it or we got familiar with it. And then years go by before you realize you needed an energy shift. And I think when you see people who are burnt out, lost, or confused, or feel like they wasted time, it's because they never realized that they stayed in the same energy state that they were in when they started. And you have to accept that time has changed and life has moved on and you've learned new things and you've gained new clarity. And so I think that will be the lesson. And letting go, I think, will be, I feel like to get to this point, I had to do a lot of what I didn't love. And I think that should always get less and less and less. So I think a healthy life isn't one where you only do what you love, but it's a life where you do less and less of what you don't love. And so I feel like my life's always moving in that direction. And I think in a year from now, I have all the clarity and all the opportunity to start afresh, as opposed to continuing to just exist in the world of repeating what's been done. You have to know whether you're someone who likes to be thrown in the deep end or whether you're someone who likes to build up incrementally. I'm generally someone who jumps into the deep end. So I was pushed in for 5 minutes and that works for me. Because for me, I'm the kind of person who needs to be pushed off to break the mental barrier to then go back and build a habit. That's my self-awareness. I became a monk in order to learn these things. I'm an extreme person. That's how I learn and build habits. But someone else goes to me, actually, Jay, I like meditating for 5 minutes a day and it works for me. And now I have confidence. I can do 10 minutes a day. I can do 15. And I love that. So I don't think it's an either or. I genuinely don't. That's not a cop-out. I think you have to know who you are. And so if I want to learn something, I'll schedule the whole weekend. If I wanted to learn archery, I would set up archery classes for 8 hours a day all weekend. I wouldn't learn it by doing archery once a week because I want to figure out whether I'm deeply interested and care about this enough to actually commit to it weekly. But that's my mindset. That's who I am. So I think the first thing I'd say is 10 minutes alone every week where you sit and you just observe your thoughts and write down every thought that comes up. This is weird. I hate this. It's boring. Oh, I can't believe Jay and Tom told me to do this, right? Like whatever else is coming up, and write it down and just become comfortable becoming aware of your thoughts. And what you'll find is that the first time you do this, it is just going to be random noise like that. What shall I eat tonight? What's going on? It's just going to be that stuff. It might even be, I hate this, I'm uncomfortable, this is not fun, I'm bored. Like it will just be natural dialogue like that. What you'll find is the next time you do it, or after a couple of times that you do it, you now might start asking interesting questions. You might now start noticing a pattern of thoughts that repeats itself. Like, oh, I've just been thinking for a week about what that person said to me about how I look. Or I've been thinking about what that person said to me about something I did online, and it's just been in my mind and it keeps repeating itself. Now you're going to start to find what you spend most of your time on. So studies show we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day, and 80% of them are negative and 80% of them are repetitive. So if our life is not transforming our thoughts, now if I asked you, what are you thinking about? You're a self-aware person. I'm pretty sure you could tell me on any given moment what you're thinking about. You ask most people what they're thinking about, the reaction will be an emotion, like I'm just stressed, I've got too much on at the moment, but we can't be really clear. So what this is giving you is a clarity of what are those repeating negative thoughts and how do we want to change them. So that's step one, is even becoming aware of the thoughts. So if I ask an average person, when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thought you have? Oh, I'm tired. That's the first thought for most people. You finally made it to coffee, you had your morning coffee and you're thinking, God, I hope this coffee gets me through the day because I'm so tired. Second time you've had the thought. You get to lunchtime, you're like, God, is it only lunchtime? And I can't even eat lunch because I'm busy working. God, I'm so tired. You get to 6 p.m., maybe you've got to work an extra hour because no one finishes work at 6 anymore. 7 p.m. you finish, you go, I'm exhausted, I can't wait to get home. You get home, and somehow at 11:37 p.m. you get the courage to watch another episode, and you repeat the cycle, right? That's a 6 thoughts in the same day.
How in the world is someone with low confidence or low self-esteem struggling from an ego issue? And I don't know that I articulated it well enough, although it's in one of the podcasts that I've released, one of my solo podcasts, but you articulate it right on. So talk about that for a second.
Yeah, so it's an interesting concept, and it's talked about in the Bhagavad Gita, another monk text. And in the book, it talks about how like ego is demonstrated in 2 ways. So ego is either I am the best in the world and I think I'm better than everyone, or ego says you're the worst in the world. You're the worst than everyone. You're much worse than everyone. Or you say my life is the best and the greatest. My life is the worst, right? My life is far worse than anyone else. So the ego likes to push you to the extreme. It doesn't like to give you balance and honesty and reality. It wants to make you feel like you've got the worst life in the world and no one else understands it. No one gets that. Only you get it and you get the worst. Or you're the best and no one else gets you. You're untouchable. And people miss that. Yes. They're like, how does that make sense? Exactly like you said. But it does make sense because the ego wants to be the top or the bottom. But the top of the bottom. Yes. It doesn't just want to be at the bottom.
It wants to be the bottom of the bottom.
Yeah, it's got to be the bottom of the bottom of the bottom, but the top of the bottom, right?
Very well said.
Yeah, and so we get lost in that and we don't think of it as ego. Yeah. And that's why the only antidote to either ego is self-honesty, is being honest. And honesty is, I'm good at these things, I'm great at these things, and I suck at these things, right? Like that's honesty. And we could all sit down, me and you could sit down with a list of our skills and map out what we were great at, what we were average at, and what we knew we were terrible at.
Yes.
And that's honesty. That keeps you so away from either ego. The challenge with all self-centeredness is that all you then indulge yourself in is your own pain.
Well, very good.
Right? You just indulge, you just submerge and like immerse yourself in pain because it's all about you.
Me. Yeah.
And I think Gandhi said it best, is that you find yourself when you lose yourself in the service of others. And what I love about that statement is that what he means by that is, and empaths get this mixed up sometimes, so I want to clarify, because a lot of people who are empaths who are listening are like, Jay, I'm always trying to help people, but then I get screwed over. So here's the answer. You're not helping people so that they can thank you. You're not helping people so that they can be grateful to you. You're helping people because you know it's the right thing to do, but more importantly, you're helping people because you get to understand and experiment and experience different parts of yourself. When I helped kids growing up in India that didn't have food and we were giving them free food, I learned so much about myself. When I was able to go and give talks that help people, or now I make videos or podcasts, you learn more about yourself when you help people. You don't learn anything about yourself when you're just sitting there filling out a quiz going, who am I? What am I? Like you don't figure, but you learn about yourself when you help people. And this is what we don't realize. I can't remember who said it recently. It was someone saying about Jeff Bezos, but they were saying that, the scale at which you succeed is the depth of the problem you solve. And so even if you look at someone like Jeff Bezos, who's extremely successful, he's successful because he solved a problem that many people have. Bill Gates is successful because he solved a problem. So even if you look at monetary success, even if you look at financial success, it comes from service. Any success comes from service. A musician is famous because they're serving. They're serving you by understanding your feelings, making music. You now feel comforted, so you follow them. They have served you. Wow. So don't think of service as just charity and giving money, which are beautiful things which we all should do. But don't just limit your life to thinking, I serve on the weekends, or I serve once a year. Really? You can serve every moment. This podcast is a service.
No question right now.
It's your service because you're serving people by giving them an alternative to just watching some trash show. But they're actually here learning from you and learning from the people that you bring on the show.
You're the bottom of the pile. You put everybody else ahead of your own needs. And like you say, you crash and burn. And then you go, oh, right, how am I going to help myself here? It's a real cultural shift that we need to make to actually be kinder to ourselves. It's quite simple, but I'm saying it from the point of view that I have not nailed this one at all.
Yeah, same. And I always say to people, and I'm saying this to myself now as I'm saying it out loud, which is when things are bad, work hard. And when things are good, work harder. And no one wants to hear that, because when things are good, we just want to enjoy it. We just want to live it. We just want to appreciate it. But we don't realize that when things are tough, that's when you put in the extra hours. But when things are really good, a little bit of extra refinement and fine tuning means you can stay there. It means you can keep thriving and keep growing. Otherwise, that complacency is what leads to that crash. And so if times are good for you right now, I really hope you'll invest a bit more in yourself. If times are tough for you right now, then naturally you'll be investing in yourself. But yeah, just don't. I've seen that in my own life. Like whenever things are good, I'm always trying to plant the seeds for the future. So this might be unpopular opinion, but I live by this, and it has truly been a game changer in my world. If it's not in the calendar, it won't get done. It's not really a priority, right? You have to make sure that it's in your plan, it's in your day. So I'm gonna show you quickly what my calendar and schedule look like. That is my life this month. As you can see, it's color-coded, it's beautifully designed. And as I flick through this, what you'll realize is that every single day, I have everything from workout time to meal times to scheduled off time, all in my calendar. What this allows me to do is it helps me prioritize both personal and professional commitments, and helps me see both things in the same place. If you haven't put something in your calendar, even if it's something social, I promise you'll either forget it or you won't plan effectively around it. When I know I have a really big podcast or a really big interview, or if I know that I have a big deadline on a day, I don't then surround that day with other difficult and challenging tasks. Sometimes I'll start my day with the most challenging task of the day because I feel that I need to start with a challenge. And sometimes I'll actually put it as the last most challenging task of the day, because actually I want to build that momentum. When you have a schedule, you get context around how you feel. That way you manage your mental health and well-being a million times better, and you do more with less time. It's fascinating how everything is just a thought. I was talking to a couple of friends a couple of nights ago, and I was talking to him about the hernia surgery that I just went through. And he was saying to me, like, how tough was it? And I had a tough version of it. We were just talking about it. Some people wake up and in the next 24 hours, they're fine. It's taken me 4 weeks to feel 50% again, right? Like that's how I feel, maybe 50, 60% again.
And I know people have gone through for 12 months. And
right.
They're still healing through
the process. People are still going through it. And so he said to me, he was just like, how did you not let yourself get depressed? Because like the first week I couldn't walk, and I had something called atelectasis, which is like a partial collapse of the lungs. So I couldn't breathe every 3 breaths almost. And then my wife rushed me to the hospital, to ER, like one morning at 3 a.m. because they thought I might have blood clots, and I didn't, thankfully. And then the second week when I started to walk, it was still like on and off pain. It was very uncertain. I then ended up getting back pain because I was on my back for so long. I couldn't lie on either side because I had it on both sides. And so then my back was like, so I was waking up at 3 a.m. every day for 3 weeks because I couldn't sleep anymore because my back was hurting. So I was walking around at 3 a.m. I couldn't sit to meditate. I was doing walking meditations. And he was like, how did you not get depressed during that time? And I said to him that for me, it was the power of my mind, and it was a story. It was like I'd lost the strength in my body for sure. But I kept repeating to myself, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm healing. I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm healing. And what I was saying to him is, it's not that because I said that I was happy, healthy, and healing. Right. It's that I had a choice of a thought, which is what you're saying, a belief that I could have either believed I'm sad, I'm hurting, and it's all over, or I'm happy, I'm healthy, and I'm healing. And just as you said, it's not that belief or that thought made me better, but it's just that if I didn't have that thought, it would have been way harder to get through that pain. And so I love that, to see that in practice, what you just said, for me was huge.
If there was any way to sum up, like what did you take from those 3 years? Like what was it that kind of seeped into your soul, that huge transformation that you went through, wherein you wanted to live this different life completely? What was it?
So I think there's a few things. The first one, and I'll share things that I think people can relate to or are digestible. One of them was adaptability. So you don't have a place you sleep. You sleep anywhere on the floor that's available. So you don't have a bedroom. You don't even have a section that's yours. Someone else could sleep there tomorrow and you'd have to sleep in their place. There's no space. Sometimes you get back and there's no food left. Sometimes you're out on the streets all day serving food, but you didn't get to eat. Sometimes you got a good night's sleep, sometimes you didn't. Like, there's just so much adaptability that you learn. Sometimes you'd get somewhere thinking you had a place to stay, but then you didn't. Like, there was just so much uncertainty in your day because you don't get to pick what you eat. There's no menu, there's no restaurant. Like, it's not like, oh yeah, I'll eat this today. You eat what you're given. So you start developing this appetite for adaptability where whatever happens, you survive and you live and you think, oh wow, like I can actually survive either way. And I think that stays with me today. I mean, we were just talking about with my team, like I slept 1 hour last night. But I've done that so many times and served all day that it's just normal. It's part of the adaptability training of you can keep giving and keep going even without that. Now, I wouldn't do that every day. That's only because I was on a plane. Just to give that caveat, I don't recommend people burn themselves out. That's a very specific thing to this particular time that I'm in this next couple of weeks. But the idea of adaptability was huge. My greatest skill is knowing that I can learn something if I want to, and that if I apply myself to it and I really deeply care about it, that I will find a way to get really good at it. And I don't think you can separate that from impact. There's a beautiful quote by Bruce Lee where he said that I'm not scared of the person that has practiced 10,000 kicks one time each. I'm scared of the person who's practiced one kick 10,000 times. And that's the switch that we have to make, is that are we willing to practice this one kick, this one move 10,000 times or whatever it may be? And that to me is the difference maker. So I would say that there's a lot of strategy because now it all makes sense, like social media, meditation, oh, that fits. It didn't make sense when I was collecting those skills. And so as Steve Jobs says, you can only connect the dots looking backwards, you can't moving forwards. And when I became a monk, it wasn't like, oh, one day I'm gonna write a book. It wasn't that, it was, hey, I think this is what my calling is. So it was a naive, innocent following of what I'm being called to do at the time, then matched with what do we do with this now that we have it as a skill, and taking a risk based on that. So I would say it's discipline. Norman Cousins once said, the tragedy of life is not death, but what we let die inside of us while we're still alive. The hardest thing to realize is the number one reason our dreams don't come true is because we don't come through ourselves. We hide them away. We pretend they don't exist. We try to forget they're there. It makes no sense. It's been locked for so long, we've even forgotten its name. Everything we do today feels like it's all the same. Our dream is like a prisoner trapped within us, a vacant listener, lacking more vision until someone comes and says, you don't see your own potential. Sometimes we need an internal intervention, but when we can't have that, a guide or a mentor or a coach can provide the trigger and catalyst for deeper understanding. And when they ask us, what's your passion? We shrug it off and say, that stuff doesn't happen. And then they push us a little further, probe us to think deeper. They're always focused on helping us find a hope inside of ourselves. Let me ask you, would you let someone who had incredible potential die right next to you? You would never do that. So why do we let them die right inside of us? That's why the missing link is a coach. A coach reminds you of your potential and sees what you don't see. Some of us get given people, some of us get given lessons, but all of us get given moments to change the trajectory of our lives. We can't imagine Kobe Bryant without Phil Jackson. We can't imagine Serena Williams without Patrick Mouratoglou. We can't imagine Tom Brady without Alex Guerrero. Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Picasso said that the meaning of life is to find your gift and the purpose of life is to give it away. Coaches can be found in books. Mentors can be found in schools. Guides will be found throughout life. We don't have to be in the same room to understand their point of view. We don't have to know them for them to show you the way. We just have to have the burning desire to learn. Everyone we admire has been coached, directly or indirectly. We're coached by our exes unconsciously. We're coached by nature indirectly. We're coached by coaches intentionally. Everyone you admire has someone behind them. Someone you've probably never heard of, someone you might not have seen, but they're there. As Zig Ziglar said, a lot of people have gone further than they thought because someone else thought they could.
As a monk, in the 3 years you were a monk, and many people stay monks until they leave this earth, right? And I'm understanding that you're saying monks don't date. Monks are celibate. So can you refresh my memory why that is? And it's not just in one kind of monk, right? You see this across cultural different monkness.
Yeah.
So why is that? Can you remind me?
I mean, there's many different reasons, and I can't speak from anyone beyond my tradition, obviously. But I would say that the number one reason is to create a sense of focus and aligned energy. So if we all believe that we have a certain amount of energy, and the more things we add to that, the more it takes away our energy in different directions. Now, being celibate or getting into a relationship is one of those, but it's the same as having a career. As a monk, you don't have a job, right? And so it's the same reasoning where it's like, well, what if all of your energy was placed in self-mastery and self-realization, and you didn't use your energy for anything else?
Or anyone else.
Would you not have the opportunity to go deep into the self? And so it's not about women or celibacy, or like, it's not about the external idea of like, some people are like, oh, well, money's bad and women are bad and that's where you stay. And it's like, well, no, it's got nothing to do with that. It's not like you don't have a job because money's bad, or you don't have a partner because, you know, a certain gender is bad. It's the idea that how could you limit all your distractions, or how could you limit all your focuses and energy to the pursuit of self-realization? And anything above the pursuit of self-realization is seen as unimportant at that stage of life. And I think there's beauty in that. I think when I think about getting 3 years of my life to have an exclusive focus on self-realization, I would say it works. I live a high-performance, productive, efficient, purposeful life. I have for quite a few years now. What that means is I am constantly dealing with also high levels of stress and monitoring and managing them in high doses. What that also means is that if uncontrolled or if not communicated effectively, there are times when I can be snappier and more irritated at my wife because she's the person that I'm around all the time. And what I started to realize, Rangan, was I was becoming someone I didn't want to be, because when it came to the person I love most in this world, who's my wife, I was being irritable, I was being snappy, I was releasing my stress, not in a angry, loud, shouty way. That's not who I am. But even if it was passive aggressive, it could be silent or subtle, but it was still not healthy. And I started to look at that and I think, wait a minute, if I'm trying to be a good person, if I believe I'm a good person, why am I acting in ways that are not aligned with myself? And I think everyone can relate to that. When you've had the stress of your day, or your boss is giving you a hard time, or the kids haven't been well behaved today, or whatever it may be. And now you and your partner are the ones sharing all that stress. And I started to realize a couple of things. The first thing was, managing stress was as important as managing my relationship. And that's the point you've just raised. You think the challenge is in your relationship, chances are the challenge is in how you manage stress. Yeah. When I've meditated effectively, when I've rested and slept my 8 hours, 7 to 9 hours a day, when I've set my intention, I am less likely to be bothered by the levels of stress. And the second point that I understood was that I'm not going to be able to perfectly manage stress all the time because I'm not perfect, I'm human, but I can communicate that to my wife ahead of time. So I'll give an example. I'm traveling for the next couple of weeks, or I'm getting ready to travel, And I'm not with my wife right now. She's in London because she has some family, someone's not well in her family. And if we were together, what I'd be saying to my wife is, hey, I just want you to know the next couple of weeks are going to be stressful for me. So if you find me kind of frantically running around or hectic, just know that I'm going to be experiencing a bit of stress. If you want my undivided attention, just let me know and I'll be there for you. But I just want to preempt the fact that I'm going to be slightly more stressed out next week. So if I'm not as present, if I'm not the same as I usually am, just don't take it personally. It's not about you, it's me. And I think saying that and communicating that ahead of the time just saves the other person from having so many other feelings about what's going on. And then you can actually deal with it better.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome.
For 10 more amazing rules from Guru Gopal Das, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
Mark Twain said something very beautiful. He said, there are two most important days in our lives. First is the day when we were born, and second is the day when we find out why. The day we are born is known to us. The day when we find out why is the day when we probably start